Hello, welcome to the Red Wheelbarrow. If you're joining us late, we are joined by Suyin Du Bois, who's about to take it away with the spotlight.
Thanks so much, Melissa. And yeah, thanks, Ed, for the invite to read tonight. I'm so delighted to have this time with you all. I'm very honored as well. So I have been really completely preoccupied for some time now with writing about food. So I thought I would give you all an entirely food-themed evening, including a series of poems of my own, of course, but I'm also going to throw in 3 poems by other poets on the theme. So I hope you have all eaten, or that perhaps you're eating on this call or something. I hope you're not coming to this hungry, or you will just be very hungry by the end, more hungry. So food to me is such a rich topic. Not only is it this amazing sensory and deeply relatable experience to describe, but it also ties so strongly to culture and to heritage, to memory, and therefore as a result to connections between people. Oh, Melissa is actually eating on this call. Yay. Oh, sorry. Immediately video off. I'm delighted. I'm so glad you are. So personally, I come from 2 heritages where food is extremely important. My father is Belgian, which means steak and moules frites and 1,500 different kinds of beer, and of course Belgian chocolate, amongst many other delights. And there's a saying in Europe, or at least my father says that there is, that you know that a restaurant is really good if there's a car parked outside of it that has a Belgian license plate. And my mother is Chinese from Malaysia, where the food is this big mix of Chinese and Malay and Indian cultures. And in the dialect of Chinese spoken in Penang, which is the island where my family is from, you literally don't ask, or you don't greet someone and ask them, hi, how are you? You ask them, hello, have you eaten? And that's how important food is. And funnily enough, my day job at the moment is also centered on food. I'm helping to build a company which aims to give doctors and nurses 24/7 access to food in hospitals, because they're working through the night, very long shifts, and actually they're often going without food, or eating food that's not very good for them at all, which affects their morale and just makes them less able to care for patients. So that actually links in really nicely to the first poem that I'd like to read, which is by Romelin Anti, who is a Filipino poet who lives in the UK, who works as a hospital nurse in our National Health Service here. So this is her poem, Ode to a Pot Noodle. Salt sharp, umami hint of steam seeps from the unfastened lid. A cluster of noodles softens in a pot. A body unstiffens in its new climate. You sustain me during break. A breath before an emergency bell tears a wall. Oh, I will pedestal you on the counter in the limelight of this lonely bulb, this fast-paced night, this instant life. A radiator click-clacks at the corner where I find a vapor of my grandfather in his arthritic dance, stirring something at the stove. Garlics are chopped, peppercorns are cracked, and the shadows of my familia ripple at the mesa. I smile at their unflavored conversations, how they slurp marrow from the shanks of balalo bones, spoons scrape the meat from the carapaces of crabs, how everyone evaporates when the kettle snaps. Yes, there should have been an ode to you. Forgive me, forgive me. So I love this poem and how evocative it is of 2 places and 2 very different food experiences all at the same time, how it ties them together and also honors family. And I love her use of Filipino words, which are mixed in so naturally into English, which is something I try to do in my own poetry as well, mixing in smatterings of Hokkien and Malay and French, and also Afrikaans a little bit, as some of my at-home languages, even though my pronunciation of many of those is not as good as it should be. So this leads in quite nicely into my own ode, and also two further poems that I'll read you, which I feel kind of speak to these topics of family and roots. And I wrote this ode in response to a call for submissions on the topic of food. It wasn't accepted for that particular journal, but after many rounds of editing over several months, it was accepted for publication by another magazine. And though I'd written a number of food-based poems before this one, I really consider this to be where my obsession started. I feel like it was the gateway drug. Ode to Kaya. Egg jam first on my young tongue, palm sugar sweet, coconut milk rich, thick layers on charred toast, salted butter cubes between, melting in Penang sweat. My goipo stood for hours stirring you in that double-boiled heat. Exports to be swaddled, twisted into pink and green plastic bags, nestled amongst swimming costumes and sundresses, rituals to ward off mid-air leaks in the 14 hours from one home to the other. Back in England, your layers thinned, our knives more sparing after each spread. After goipo grew too frail, aunties and uncles gifted us store-bought surrogates. You were labelled Kaya. Our cupboards filled with your empties, aid memoir of indulgence repurposed to house fragrant rice, Chinese mushrooms, our longing for Nonya flavours. By the time pandan leaves arrive in Chinatown, I am grown up, have my own kitchen where I can stand for hours. But goipo has long since condensed into photographs, so I sweeten my never-asked regret, trace down someone else's heirloom recipe. You are needy, threaten lumps, failure, but I stir and stir like her until my spoon draws the right depths of lineage. I lift a heap of you into my mouth, tongue your clotted, grainy sweetness. So the first draft of this next poem I'm going to read you came out of a workshop that was entirely focused on writing about vegetables. And it was led by Sean Wai-kyung, who's a poet of mixed Hong Kong Chinese and British ancestry. He lives in Glasgow and who writes a lot about food also. And honestly, I was so thrilled to be in a room, virtual room, full of other people who love vegetables. So the vegetable that I chose to write about is Chinese leafy green. So this is Craving Eng Chai, I detour to Chinatown. In the fluorescent stage light of a Gerrard Street grocery, long-tongue leaves serenade me with its many names. Eng Chai, Ong Choi, Kangkong, water spinach, morning glory. I can already taste it. Earthy, baritone under sambal belacan, fermented tofu, chili and soy, garlic and oyster sauce. Despite the price tag of its emigration, I take a bundle home, wash with care, immerse myself in Mum's tale of scorpions hiding in hollow stems. What should make me flinch, drown the bunch in the sink, brings me closer to the mud of it, to hands like mine harvesting. Simple cuttings will flourish here in the right conditions, so I feel for nodes, proof of roots, fantasize 4 meters of stalks stretching across my patch of London clay from camellia to wisteria, thriving in puddles, singing itself to the sun between overcast days. So this next poem came out of a prompt that was given in a workshop run by another poet I love, Nina Mingya Powells, who is another poet of mixed heritage, Chinese Malaysian and New Zealand heritage. She lives in London now. And the prompt was to imagine a journey that you take very often, say your bus trip home from work, or a walk to your favorite coffee shop, or maybe a much longer trip, like a flight back to a faraway home. And then to draw like a very simple line representing that journey, and then randomly pick a point on that line, and then use that spot to start writing from. So what you see, smell, feel, and so on at that particular moment in your journey. And this is the poem that came out of that prompt for me. Omelette or chicken curry with coconut rice. Alarm clock of cabin lights. Shades slide up to the Bay of Bengal's late afternoon sun. I blink awake, groggy and fair-toothed, orient myself by the rattle of the trolley cart. Lifting the fruit tray first, I welcome the familiar chill sting of melon cubes on my incisors. Next, the yogurt pot that will spurt, no matter how I whisper the foil back. I spoon sambal over the fried egg resting on my rice, scatter the peanut packet over the curry, assemble each mouthful just so, and like that, this is no longer airplane food. It is the three-welled sambal that cousin Nikki says is as spicy as the chef is angry. It's nasi unveiled from the pyramids Auntie Lynn buys us from her secret sauce, so lemak. It is unfolded from brown paper, banana leaf, lifted from the coffee shop's expectant pile, shared with my brother as a savory balance to our kaya toast breakfast. Belly full, I recline my seat, close my eyes. Banana leaves stained satisfaction red drape across every tray table. The cabin crew prepares us for landing. So this next poem I'm going to read you is by Hannah Lowe, who is a British poet whose father was of mixed Chinese and Jamaican heritage. And this poem is from her debut collection, Chick, which is focused entirely on her, Elisa's father, his gambling career, and their relationship. It's a really excellent collection that I would very highly recommend. So this is her poem, Sausages. They hang from the washing line, between the tea towels and bleached sheets. He has pegged them in neat clusters, dark fingers of blood and gristle with twisted ends and oily skins. They flame against the trees. She smells them from the back door. Ginger, clove, and fennel. The house is quiet. He is hiding from her. Her mother told her not to marry a foreigner. You always wanted to be different, she hissed. Now this, he's black and old enough to be your father. The sausages, a Chinese dragon red, the red of a chilly or a shamed face. They gather fire drying on her line. This is Ilford, Essex, 1965. The neighbours eat mince and cabbage and talk about her. She asked him not to do it, but they taste like home to him and he is like good food to her. Tonight they will eat sausages together and she will lick the oil and spice from his hands. So in answer to this poem, I will read you 3 poems which speak to mixed cultures, I guess both dealing with my own feelings of in-betweenness and mixed feelings about belonging and not belonging, and also contemplating a bit the mix of new cultures between myself and my husband. Okay. Beginner Hokkien, but fluent in Khoi. Before speaking, this nose introduces me to the party as European, not Penang Lang. Yet this feast of quay allows me a way in. Pandan leaf, butterfly pea flower, dark beet, coconut flesh mingle on the lazy Susan swirled between guests. We sate silence with stories of firm favourites and elusive treats we long for, whose sweetness still coats our cheeks. A handful of cellars at Plauticus, onde from the elderly uncle by night, and kuque from the early morning stalls. The Saramban auntie who sells her pullet inti at the Putney Thameside bi-weekly, charms a queue of kaki lang seeking that warm balm you lick off banana leaf ridges. No one realizes I have memorized these Nonya names, that each time I return, I find them hanging, glutinous, caramelized, ready to chill up my half Angmor mouth. Not the green and white layer one, not the burnt tapioca one, not the kaya one. Kweta lam, kwe benka, pulut tai tai. So in this next poem, I feature the same market that I just mentioned in the last poem, which is a brilliant wet market close to where my family stays in Penang. And it's often one of the very first places I go when I arrive back home there. And I find it a very grounding place to be, though, as you'll hear in the poem, there is also some conflict there, as though I feel like I should belong. I'm never perceived as belonging there. And this poem will actually be published in the next couple of months in an anthology with the theme of in-betweenness. The first mouthful. In the back corner of Platicus Market, tucked in behind uncles pressing fresh santan, trays of quay steamed overnight, gutted fish beside batik dresses and the energetic ladling of hawker sellers, I sit still. Watch tiny bubbles on the surface of my kway teow tung. I'm not sure what's woken me so early, jet lag or my stomach aching for hot soup in the heat, for kopi strong and carnation swirled, for the kinship of their steam. I pull fine white noodles from the broth's well-oiled clarity, wind them into the flat base of my spoon, chopstick up a slither of duck, crunchy pork lard, one wide blinked iris of chili paddy to top the pile. Nudging the spoon back into the liquid so it wells up around this first mouthful, I catch the curious eye of the uncle at the next table. Where are you from? Why mamasi penanglang? The words misintoned or too unexpected from this face, he frowns. The rooster on the side of my bowl hasn't yet crowed me fully awake, so I say London, and we both smile. I turn back, slurp my spoonful down, feel the quick slip of the kway teow, the stock radiating through me, the chili biting at my throat. So this next poem was written to a commission by a friend. She was putting together a series of poems and short prose pieces based on Chinese sayings and superstitions. And I chose this one about the importance of eating every grain of rice from your bowl, which is one that I grew up with and therefore really resonated with me. To the very last. An enduring habit, these final mindful moments of the meal, scooping sauce-soaked rice between my chopsticks, finessing away the last loner grains from around the bowl until its rejuvenated face stares back, haloed in completion like an 8-year-old me consuming her mother's superstition. Each grain wasted is a pockmark on your future husband's face. Digesting the seed of it, metabolizing to action so that when she dishes, she rolls sticky grains off the sides of the cooker, scrapes at the bottom, gone a little crispy, wasting not and wanting not, caked on. I still leave nothing behind, though your face is already here at our dinner table, and finely milled marks enrich your cheeks. You sit with me long past your last mouthful, wait for my ritual to finish, smile across our empty bowls, always ready for more. So this final poem that I'll read to you by another poet is by Kristen O'Keefe Aptowitz. I hope I'm saying it correctly. She's an American poet who's published by Right Bloody Publishing, who also published Megan Foley of poems that don't suck fame. And this is from her collection, The Year of No Mistakes. July. The figs we ate wrapped in bacon, the gelato we consumed greedily, coconut milk, clove, fresh pear, how we dump hot espresso on it just to watch it melt, licking our spoons clean. The potatoes fried in duck fat, the salt we'd suck off our fingers, the eggs we'd watch get beaten till they were a dizzying bright yellow, how their edges crisped in the pan. The pink salt blossom of prosciutto we pulled apart with our hands, melted on our eager tongues. The green herbs with goat's cheese, aged brie paired with a small pot of strawberry jam, the final sour cherry we kept politely pushing onto each other's plate, saying, "No, you, but it's so good. No, it's yours." How I finally put an end to it, plucked it from the plate and stuck it in my mouth. How good it tasted, so sweet and so tart. How good it felt to want something and pretend you don't, and to get it anyway. Oh, I really love that poem. It's just so delicious, and I also find it really relatable. This like really strong food politeness when sharing. You're like, oh no, you, but you know, you really want the delicious thing. So in response, I have two final poems to read to you. One is, I hope, a quite visceral food poem. It's completely different in nature to this one. And then to finish, I'm going to read you a poem I wrote about rusks, because that feels like a very appropriate end to finish this particular reading for you all in South Africa. Okay. Super whole food. With cabbage on the nurse's lips, I see the surgeon dissect the withered segments of Dad's heart, transplant raw brassica leaves snapped sharp off the stem, bright and pulsing with veins that arch out, oxygenate his crinkled edges. In the waiting room, Mum and I eat, first time since the blue lights cut the collapsed hours of yesterday. We crunch precise slices of green bean, broccoli florets that ruminate between our teeth, quinoa, pistachio, almond. The plastic container shouts, super whole food, I am good for you. Antidote to anxiety, this clean food in my body is the panacea his needs until he is remade, revived, reveined. As he recovers in ICU, I bypass biscuits beside the kettle, decline pastries my sister-in-law brings as comfort, condemn their artery clotting butter, insist we oil these bloodlines slick with mackerel, an IV of omega-3 to counter the convalescence menu, shepherd's pie, mac and cheese, sticky toffee pudding with custard filming over. I thump on about Dad's immaculate grafts, remind everyone how cholesterol hardens around the heart. Funnily enough, I was actually back in the same hospital today where my dad was treated for his heart attack, and then had this surgery to like graft lots of different grafts onto his heart to make it work again. And we were installing a new fridge there. It's actually very like just outside that particular department. It was quite emotional. Yeah. So before I read this final poem, I just really need to apologize for my complete inability to pronounce Afrikaans words. Ek is baie jammer. Please forgive me. Okay. On the first cold day of winter, you ask for rusks. Tanny Nolene's recipe calls for true Burramesi quantities, so I adapt each measure by awkward fractions. Still, the batter laps the lip of my bowl as I wed flour to crushed bran to buttermilk. The last step says dry. I had to Google it the first time, and even on the 13th, I worry when to take them out of the oven, leave them in overnight. In the morning, our house smells of a hunger that's spread wide since our last trip back to your childhood home, my windfall one. We don't wait. We dunk rough chopped rusks into our coffee, and you tell me once more about your Oma's aniseed biscuit, so tall and arid they'd absorb half a mug in one dip, hang sodden only long enough for your mouth to get under their fall. We reminisce about road trips between Hermanus and Boteville, how they make us pause at every padstall, seek out the most tempting treats. Banana and bran, pumpkin seed and apricot, how every homemade rusk tempts us. You remind me that mine are your favorite, and I reply, yay, is my gansteven. And we keep going until the bottom of our mugs is a beach of sunflower seeds and crumbs with the tide sucked out.
Oh, beautiful. Let's all unmute and clap very loudly.
Wow.
I think food is definitely the way to, like you said at the beginning, the connection, all of that. I kept tearing up and just, yeah, even though your cultures and the things you're writing about are unique to you and removed from me, I can just relate so much. So thank you so much for sharing. That was a beautiful food journey. And if anybody in the audience would like to ask a question, make a comment, you can raise your hand or put a question in the chat, or just unmute yourself if we don't see you. So I think, first I'll just start us off, since I see Jacques has put his hand up now, but I'll start us off. I love that you're obsessed about writing with food, and I'm very excited to read a whole collection of food poems from you. I think that would be amazing. So I hope that's something you're working on, and like that it will happen. And I also really love how you've been able to take this food obsession and like mix it with the multiculturalism and that outsideness and all of that different spaces you are crossing. I think that's so smart and so natural at the same time. So I don't know if I have a question really, but you've mentioned quite a few different like workshops, prompt places, that kind of thing. Is that your main sort of space where you find you write the best, or like how do you come to these poems?
Good question. Yes, so I find that workshops are the best for making me actually sit down and write, particularly ones which are structured in the way that Poems That Don't Suck is, because you have deadlines and every week you have to write a poem, otherwise people aren't going to feedback on your poem and you will have missed that opportunity. And yeah, I've been to a couple of other workshops that are structured in that same way, and that is definitely when I'm most productive. I think the other thing that motivates me is indeed trying to write enough food poems to create a pamphlet manuscript rather than a full collection. I'm trying to get to like a good solid 20. And having a theme for that, being food, I found quite motivating and inspirational as well, because it kind of focuses my thoughts and ideas on one thing that is a really broad thing though. But I think that's important. Although weirdly, I think I have too many ideas now, and therefore too much fancy fear of like turning those ideas into fully fledged poems. So yeah, kind of double-edged sword. But yeah, what else? Yeah, I feel like external deadlines are really the thing for forcing me to write. So yeah, I definitely have to join more workshops.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's great to have found what works for you, and the pamphlet sounds perfect. Jacques, you had your hand up.
Oh, Jacques has dropped off the call.
Oh, no.
Oh
Maybe
no.
load shedding got him. I'm sure he'll be back. Is there anyone else who wants to? There's a bunch of wonderful comments in the chat already about loving what you read. So I hope you've seen those. Anybody else who'd like to say something or ask something? If you're shy, you can type something in the chat and I'll read it. Georgia.
Hi. Hi, Suyin. I just wanted to say how absolutely wonderful that was to hear tonight, and so inspiring to hear you just riff on this theme of food in such a beautiful way. Again, as Melissa said, I don't really have a question. Just a real appreciation for how you brought the pieces. I really got a feeling of these. What were the words you used when you said this in-betweenness? And I was so inspired by how you brought that into this theme and just really, really used it. And I was transported. It was really wonderful.
Oh,
and yeah, really great. And I loved what you said about the workshops as well. I'm just about to join Megan Falley's workshop, which is going to be fantastic. Yeah, really looking forward to that.
Your first time joining.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, I only asked because people generally just keep going back to it.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm tempted myself,
wow.
But dates are a bit tricky. But yeah, I would like to make it work, because yeah, it's genuinely the best workshop that I've been on.
Wow. I do have one question, which is, do you spend? So you're in England, are you? So
yeah.
Okay. Do you spend? How do you divide your time? You have 3 places.
Yes. So I try to go back to Malaysia every year in non-pandemic times. I will be going there for 5 weeks, a little bit later this year, do a bit of work remotely from there. And then South Africa, we try and go, I guess, every 1.5 to 2 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
And yeah, great. And then obviously Belgium is closer, but weirdly I have a less regular schedule for that because it feels like you could just pop over anytime, of course, and then you don't do that.
Wow, that's wonderful. It's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Georgia. You're in Spain, right?
I'm actually in England at the moment. Yeah, we're sort of split between England and Spain, but yeah. Escaping the heat.
Oh yeah, there. Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Jacques has made it back. We can't see you yet, Jacques, but you're welcome to find your camera button and unmute yourself for your question. And Georgia, I'm very excited that you're going to be doing poems that don't suck. That's awesome. Can't hear you yet, Jacques. While we wait to see if Jacques' technology stops hating on him, is there anyone else with a comment or question?
Have we lost Ed as well?
Yeah.
Load shedding here in South Africa, I think. The 8 o'clock slot is taking everyone down.
How long
There's
is it?
Ed coming in.
Or-
They're usually like 2.5 hour slots. But I think most of us are
Ed.
equipped with some sort of backup stuff. So Ed is rejoining us. Hey. And Jacques is still struggling. Okay, Ed, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Glad to be back. Suyin, that was amazing. I thank you. The way you put it together as well, especially with the I think Jacques is coming into this space. So just a second, let's get him over here. Okay, so what I wanted to say, I love the choices. They were inspired and inspiring. But and I think Melissa alluded to this already, the possible shape of the collection. That's quite fascinating with the South African angle, the in-betweenness, and I like the subtle ways that I took notes for the kinship of their steam. And the chili biting at my throat. Just very subtle ways of getting across the kinds of preoccupations that you. I am rambling, but the ingredient, the one ingredient which I think is key in all of these poems is your precision with language. I feel and yeah, just that's there in all of the poems, and I think I've said what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Ed, thank you.
Thanks.
I really feel like you've already seen most of it. I feel like I've already sent you most of these poems. It's just like, if not, I think almost every single one. So you're like, you've already got the inside track.
The reading was a treat, though. Yeah, it's different hearing someone read. Yeah. Hey, so here's Jacques.
So I loved your reading. I usually have a question, but I mostly just feel like saying yes. Because I'm both hungry and I feel as if I've been fed. But I'm interested in this. I love the way that you use food to express nostalgia, and at the same time, it also feels as if food is a ritual thing for you to gain access into new spaces. So it's also a ritual for initiation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's very accurate, really accurate.
It's a liminal kind of thing that you go into the past, but you also go into the future. It's this weird, it's very powerful.
Thank you so much, Jack. That's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's about food and how important it is to connection. And I guess, yeah, we can connect with people over so many different times and spaces. And yeah, you connect back to people in the past, but also use it as a way to make new connection, for sure. And I guess, yeah, I wonder, there's probably something a bit not overthought, but I guess I'm conscious that I'm writing on the same theme of food, and I don't want to keep writing like the same food poem. So in a way, I need to find ways in which food is doing different things in each of the poems, which probably then leads to this, is it a poem that is nostalgic and takes me back, or is it a poem of a relationship now, or is it a poem of, I need to keep thinking of different ways in which food can open up other topics, because obviously none of these poems are only about food, and so that secondary topic that's sitting underneath the food needs to keep being different, I think, to keep it interesting.
Yeah, and it's bittersweet because you never quite, once you've belonged to different places, you want to be in all of them at the same time, or it's a kind of a bittersweet thing.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
That's so true. Yeah, bittersweet is a great word for it. Definitely.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thanks so much, babe.
Thanks, guys. Anyone else with a comment, question, thoughts before we move over to open mic time? Suyin, do you want to tell us where to find you or how to support you or anything like that?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. I post infrequently, but I do post, mostly when I have something poetry related to announce. So it's Suyin Du Bois. And I am also on Twitter, but I really don't know how to use it, and I mostly use it for complaining to companies, or I did previously, and now I don't know what's happened to it because it's become this whole other thing, right? So Instagram essentially. And I have various poems published online, and they're actually all linked from my Instagram page. I have a link tree that will take you to a few places. There are a couple of them as well where there's a recording of me reading the poem as well, which I think is a fun thing that online journals are doing. I quite like it.
I think it's a treat to get to hear you read them, so those are definitely worth checking out. Okay, so if there's no last minute question takers, then we are going to wrap up this part of the evening. Thank you, Suyin, for really this delicious journey. I think you've moved us all, you've connected with us all, and I love the way you curated your poems and the others that you shared tonight. That was a brilliant reading. We're very, very lucky to have been witness to it. So let's clap one more time.